Welcome to dentReviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing the FitEar To Go F111 earphones. Big thanks to Narl Sagan for loaning me these. I highly appreciate it. This is probably one of the best earphones I've ever heard. It's up there in my opinion with the ER4S by Etymotic. They're very similar in some ways and very different in some ways, and I'll get into that. But essentially what you get is a mesh bag which offers a little bit of padding and protection. 3 sets of silicone ear tips, just standard silicone, and a set of bi-flange ear tips, also silicone, soft. I didn't get them sent to me, but they also come with a shirt clip and a cleaning tip for the ear tips. Nothing special. The shirt clip just clips the cable to your shirt to prevent some noise from the cable, and the cleaning tip just clears earwax out of the tips. Here's the body of the ear tip, here the earphone. As far as I know, this is the only earphone that uses a titanium sound bore hole there, which is pretty nice. It's a very attractive earphone. The housing is molded into that titanium sound bore really smoothly, and it's got a horn-shaped design, which I'll discuss, and you can actually almost see the filter in there. It's a very attractive design. It's got a plastic outer housing, and you can see here the cabling. It's a removable cable, and it's very nice because it's a thick plastic piece. It doesn't feel cheap, it feels solid. And then you have this soft plastic ear guide, because these are over the ear earphones. Very comfortable, very flexible. So to get into a description of the sound, essentially there are 2 different signatures that you can get based on the type of fit that you get. The fit is basically either a shallow fit, just barely in the ear and sealed well, or a deep, kind of a typical fit with this type of earphone where you push it all the way in and get a seal that way. With the deeper fit, which is probably the common fit that you'd find with these, you get sort of a warm sound, very similar to an Etymotic ER4S in the sense that they're very flat in terms of frequency response. However, with the deep fit, you have sort of a shifted towards bass presentation, so the bass is a little bit heavier and the treble is a little bit more recessed. They're more open sounding than the ER4S and more 3D, but similar frequency response, just with that warmer tilt. You lose a little bit of the air because of that in the treble, and instruments sound warmer and less realistic if you're being extremely critical. However, compared to most earphones, they're very neutral. So I'll end it there with the standard fit, and then I'll move on to the perfect fit, as I call it. If you fit these in your ear very shallow, but in a good seal, you get a very, very, very similar frequency response to the Etymotic ER4S. In fact, I think the frequency response is almost identical. However, they sound noticeably different because even though the frequency response is similar, these offer a more smooth, open sound because of the design. So what happens is you end up with the Etymotic signature being sort of flat, and I don't just mean the frequency response, but actually the imaging, what you're hearing. So you'll have instruments along the sound field that you hear from left to right, the stereo field, and they just sound sort of flat, like they're in front of you. You can analyze them, they're very analytical, and you can see them in detail or hear them in detail, but they're on a flat plane almost. Whereas with these earphones, that plane is almost larger and more three-dimensional, so that the instruments stand out a bit more distinctly in the real space. And that creates a few differences. First, they're easier to listen to, in my opinion. I don't find the ER4S particularly fatiguing, especially with red filters and a sub-bass EQ, which really makes them shine. However, in comparison, these are a little bit more relaxed sounding, easier to listen to, while also bringing out instrumentation better. So when you listen to a guitar or a violin, they almost jump out of that field of music and stand out clearly, whereas in the Etymotic, yes, you can hear them precisely along the field, but they're almost all together on a flat field, and it doesn't give you the true sense of depth that you get with a set like this. So I would say, in terms of sound quality, those features are an improvement with the F111 over the ER4S. There are some downsides though. The F111 doesn't isolate as well as the ER4S, and to give you an idea of the isolation, I'd say these are in the 20 decibel range, 25 maybe at most. The Etymotic is in the 40 decibel range. A standard pair of earplugs is probably around 15 to 20 decibels, with the best over-the-counter earplugs you can buy being around 33 decibels noise reduction. So the Etymotic is better than the best earplugs you can buy in the store. These are about average, so in that regard they're good. They do a good job of blocking out noise. You can still hear your ambient environment, especially if you're in a loud environment, but they take the level down to a point at which it's easy to hear the music and it's comfortable for most situations. So I'd say they're good average isolation. In terms of comfort, they provide a very soft, very simple fit. They just plug in your ear and they wrap around your ear with the soft plastic, so they're comfortable. They're not very hard to insert like the Etymotic, where you have to kind of have an art of inserting them deeply and rotating them, and I have a video on that, or I will have a video on that. Whereas these you can just push in and there you go. However, to get that perfect seal and that perfect shallow fit becomes more difficult. Unfortunately, to really experience the beauty of these earphones, I think that fit is necessary. To get that fit, I find that it's not easy to consistently achieve it. If you push them in your ear just enough to seal and just enough to be in your ear without falling out, I think the fit is perfect and you get the ideal sound quality. Unfortunately, I would say 1 out of 10 times do I actually achieve that. On some days it's easier and I'll find that I can put them in and out and not really have a difficult time, and then other days like today I can barely even get the seal properly. So it's a little bit frustrating in that regard, because they're a pricey earphone at around $600, $595 to be exact. I would expect them to be consistent in their sound. Now, I would argue that they are consistent with a deep fit, so if you're not concerned about the utmost accuracy and flat signature, put them in like any typical earphone of this type, push them in deep and get a good seal, and they sound the same pretty consistently. However, bass boosted and treble recessed is kind of the signature you get, whereas if you can get that perfect seal, it really balances that treble and bass frequency response enormously and gives you a much better imaging, because that treble air brings out instrumentation better, gives you more of a sense of realism and depth. So I highly recommend you try to get that fit. Narl Sagan was kind enough to send me a whole assortment of other tips here, which I have gone through every single tip more than once in different days, and to be honest, it all comes back down to the standard medium silicone tips for me. They all provide about the same amount of ease of fit, which is not really easy, but an ease of fit, whereas some of them are more comfortable than others, and some of the foam and whatnot isolate a little bit better. However, for me, the standard medium silicone offers the easiest seal, because as I push it into my ear gently and trying to get the shallow fit, they're just the right size to give me a seal without, falling out or being too thin and too small and leaving air gaps, or sealing so tight that I need to push them in further. So it's just the right balance for me. But I suggest you get a hold of as many tips as you can, try as many fit placement as you can, and just do the best to get that perfect fit. If you do, I think these are probably some of the best earphones I've ever heard. If you don't, I think they're still some of the best earphones I've ever heard. However, they're going to be warmer and less detailed than the Etymotic ER4S, with not as good isolation, but better comfort. So overall, I'd say these are a highly recommended earphone if you can get that fit. Unfortunately, the only way to know is to try. I mean, I can't really say how easy it would be. The Etymotic fit is practice more than anything, but once you get the practice down and you know how to insert those ER4 earphones, you can do it consistently every time. I don't believe these are a matter of practice. I believe these are a matter of conditions, whether your ear conditions are just right and the tip conditions, the temperature, your sweat, whatever. It all seems to equate to how well these seal in that shallow fit. So I think it's going to be a challenge for most people, and I've actually read similar stories on the forums saying other people have had some similar issues with it. So I would probably go into these expecting the warmer frequency. If that's what you want, and you want a high quality pair of very discerning, balanced but warm earphones, I'd suggest these. If you want to get that critical fit, you might be better off going with the ER4S once you get used to those tips and you can insert them, you're going to have a consistently crisp and detailed image. However, with these getting that precise fit, shallow and sealed well, I think they're actually surpassing the Etymotic in overall quality. Just again, more open, spacious, 3D instruments have a little bit more of a dynamic sound to them. They have a little bit more of a realistic presence. A guitar sounds more like a guitar rather than an image of a guitar that you're seeing, whereas the ER4S is almost like you're analyzing something, and it's beautiful and it sounds great, but it sounds like you're analyzing something that's in front of you, close and in front of you, whereas this sounds like you're in a space more. Still analytical by IEM terms, but more spacious and more 3D. I highly recommend these again with that fit. And that's about it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you very much for watching.